Ecclesiastes chapter 5. I've struggled with this book. I almost decided to go somewhere else this week. I just feel like we don't have a lot of interest in it. People aren't, I don't know, it's just, I love it. I do. I love to read about Solomon. He was such a deep thinker, and he looked at all aspects of life. And he pretty much done anything and everything that could be done under the sun. And at the end of the day, he seen it was all pointless. Everything he had done in his life was pointless. And today we're going to look and we're going to see, and I think in chapter 5, we're going to see, I feel like Solomon looks into his life here. I don't believe that there's ever been, and there ever will be, a man that had more money and more power than Solomon. And you say, Jeremy, what about the people today? All these rich people like Bill Gates. Bill Gates could not have touched King Solomon. That's how rich King Solomon was. And nobody went to war with King Solomon. Nobody fought him. Part of that due to his father David had conquered everybody. But he had more money and more power than any. We read in the Bible where other kings and queens would come just to sit and talk to him. And he would counsel them on how to make their kingdoms better. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? But we'll start reading here at the chapter 5, starting at verse 1. It says, "Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God." And here's something and so many times we read things like this verse, man, that's a good verse. That's a good verse. And I did that. The first time I read, man, that's a good verse. And the second time I read it, I thought, man, we need to listen to that. And the third time I read it, I thought, that's getting deeper, that's meaning more and more every time I read it. Be more ready to do what? To hear. How many times, and not just coming, this isn't just talking about coming to church. How many times do we pray and we never stop to listen? We're too busy doing what? Telling God what we want. Lord, I need you. I'm not saying, we go, Lord, I need you. We need to pray for so-and-so, they're sick. And we keep, and we just keep going and keep going. And before we ever stop and listen, what do? Amen. And we're up and we're gone. This is something that I've struggled with, that most of you all know. I'm a talker. I'm surprised Derek Gooden is my friend. Because that ride to Boston, I thought for sure after that he wouldn't have never, because I talk. We never turned the radio on any. I was either talking or asleep. Didn't sleep much either. But it's hard sometimes for me to listen. Even with Brooke. Brooke will say, listen, I'm talking to you. Huh? But when you go to the house of God, be ready to hear. And let's just think about tonight, how many of us came, including me, how many of us came here tonight ready to hear something? How many of us come with the expectation that God's going to speak to us tonight? That's why we're going. How many come on Sundays, right? Ready to hear something? You better find that crayon real quick. Instead of coming ready to hear, we got other intentions, right? And some of them are great intentions. I want to go to church because I love God. Yeah, that's good. I want to go to church because we've not had church in the sanctuary. That's good. Good intent. I need to go to church because I'm a Christian. But how often do we come in saying, Lord, speak to me? And you know what you have to do to hear something? What do you got to do? You got to concentrate. Right? And you're going to block out what? The other noise. Don't you? Block out everything else. Sometimes that's hard, isn't it? When you come into church. Block everything out. That's why most time before I preach, the one thing I ask God is to remove me. In other words, I would say, Lord, block out everything else and let it just be you. I'm going to turn this iron back on now. It's that easy. We're distracted. Do we hear anymore? Do we? We're off track. Be ready to hear, then to do what? Then to give the sacrifice of fools. For they consider not that they do evil. He said, be ready to hear, then to come in and offer something to God. God would much rather you hear what He has to say than for Him to have to listen what you have to offer Him. You know, so many times we think, I love the fact that when I get to talk to people about our church during this time, the one thing I tell them, because this is the way a lot of churches are, the way people look at churches, the one thing I tell them is, we ain't even taking up no offering. I said, now we've got people that are still tithing, doing what they're supposed to do. I said, but we're not asking for your money. Because guess what? God don't want your money if you ain't going to listen to Him. God don't want you coming and saying, all right, Lord, I don't want to hear what you have to say, but here's $20. Here's my 10%, Lord, but I ain't going to hear anything you have to say. Be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth, therefore let thy words be few. This is totally against the way we pray, isn't it? Let thy words be few. Totally against it. How many, one thing I love to do, and I haven't done it in a long time, to be honest with you, but I love just to come and sit in this church. Just come and sit down. If you have never done it, you need to try it. Come, find you a seat, and just stare out that window. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. So many times we get so caught up in the fact that we have to come do something, right? We're coming to church because why? We've got to clean the church. We're coming to church because why? We've got to preach a message. We're coming to church because why? We've got to sing a song. We're coming to church because why? We've got to feed, or we've got to teach, or we've got to drive, or we've got to run the sound system, or we've got to take up the offering, or we've got to hold the door. And we forget that that's not the reason we come to church, is it? We come to church to do what? To worship God and to hear from God. And you're sitting here, you know what it's like to hear from God. There's sometimes, I like to listen to preachers myself. But what you ought to understand is there's times when I'm preaching, I hear from God. Because something comes out that I didn't see, didn't know. It just came out. And it may be 2 words. How many's ever been in a service like that where a preacher or a singer shared a testimony and one sentence was what you was there to hear? One thing. But when we come to God's house, we need to listen. We need to not be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For a dream cometh through the multitude of business, And a fool's voice is known by a multitude of words. For a dream cometh, what you ponder on, and what you think on, and what you dwell on, comes from your activity, is what it's saying. Comes from your effort, what you've been doing. How many sitting here right now, you still have on your mind what you've done today? Your job, you've got it on your mind. Your garden, you've got it on your mind. A television show, you've got it on your mind. Mama's pinto beans, that's why I'm struggling breathing today. That's what I have for a cat. Got it on your mind, right? And we lose focus. And then what is it? Do you know what gets me in more trouble than anything? My tongue. I can put my foot, I've learned, I can put not just one foot, but both feet in my mouth. That's how big my mouth is. And how many times do we come into the church and we're doing it? A fool's voice is nothing but, the more someone talks, the more of a fool you can tell they are. As I read this, I was watching Haynes Flat's video the other night. He was talking about Leroy Overton. He was going to be 80 years old this year. Leroy's about, what, John, 6'6", 6'7" at least. Probably was 6'9" in his prime. Hands, huge. Feet, huge. But Leroy talked less than most people I know. He did. But when he spoke, you listened and you heard him. A fool's voice is known by a multitude of words. The more you talk, the worse it gets. You ever done that? Had a good deal going with somebody, you know, you was going to sell them something or you was going to buy something, and had them hooked into it, and the more you talk, what happened? You lost the deal. It went wrong. Let's go. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he hath no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. Better is it that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. Oh, that's a good scripture. We all know that one, don't we? You ought not tell God you ought not tell God you're going to do something and not do it, right? You ought not do that. But how many of us, time and time again, have said, Lord, I'm going to serve you better. Lord, I'm going to be a better Christian. Lord, I'm going to pray more. Lord, I'm going to read my Bible more. We don't think of it that way, do we? That's a vow, isn't it? You've promised the Lord something. But how many times have we done that in our lives? And still yet we're not living. Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin. Neither say before the angel that it was an error, wherefore should God be angry at thy voice and destroy the works of thy hands. And I didn't give these scriptures to them, but I want to read you two scriptures here from this. James 1:26. If any man among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceive his own heart, this man's religion is in vain. So many times we kill our witness with what comes out of our mouth. I don't know about you, but for me, as soon as I hear somebody cuss, it hurts me. They lose their witness. To me. There was even people that worked on our church and other churches that I thought, I was like, yeah, I enjoyed working with them until they let one slip. And I said, I'm not going to work around them no more. It killed their witness to me. And how many times do we kill our witness talking about politics? Right? How many of us this week and last week spent the majority of the time we were talking to somebody about the rights? Right? How many are talking about the fact that the governor's wanting to give Medicaid to a certain race of Kentucky 100%? How many of us done that? Right? That's what we start doing, isn't it? And by that, what do? We lose our testimony. And you know the best way to fix that is to always talk about what? Always talk about Jesus. First Peter chapter 3, verse 10 says, "For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile." You want to lengthen your days? Control your tongue. Control what you say. And we know the other scriptures, how it talks about how the tongue is a little member, but, it's a whirlwind of fire. Little kindle, makes a big flame, doesn't it? For in the multitude of dreams and many words there are also divers vanities. But fear thou God. He says, for the multitude of what you think about and of what you want to do and of the words that you speak, there are many different vanities. Many different pointless things. Think about that. How many conversations do we have in a day about politics, about the government, about our governor, about the riots, about the coronavirus, that are what? Pointless. Pointless. Right? What are we going to do? I got to tell somebody. I got to tell somebody my opinion. Right? And with that, and $1.09, you can get 2 apple pies at McDonald's. Can't you? Or has it went up? Bill would know. The apple pies went up any bill. $2 now? What's this world? Here we are talking about rights. Let's talk about the apple pies. That's more important. Ain't it done? All right, let's go on. If thou seest the oppression of the poor, and violent perverting of judgment, and justice in a province, marvel not at that matter. Listen, when I read this, I thought, man, this goes good for right now. We see the oppression of the poor, violent perverting of judgment, and justice in a province. Marvel not at that matter for what? For he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. What's it saying? And what that's saying is this: I know there's wickedness going on in the world, and I don't agree with everything that's taking place right now. I don't agree with what all's happening. I don't agree with sometimes how our local law enforcement handles situations. And I don't agree with the way things going on. I don't agree with some of the school things that are going on. But guess what? Let God take care of that. I'll tell you something I think that would help us be good Christians. You know what help us be better Christians? Turn off Fox, turn off CNN, turn off the news. Then you ain't got nothing to complain about anymore, do you? You never know what's going on, do you? Wake up one day, you got a new president, wouldn't even know about it, would you? Because, well, guess what? Doesn't matter who's the president. Doesn't matter who's the governor. Now, don't get me wrong. We need to vote. That's not what the preacher said. We'll have to vote. My preacher told us we can just. It don't matter who the president is. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is, it's Jesus, and Jesus is it. And if we'll quit focusing on all this other stuff, and you say, Jeremy, why is Solomon talking about this? Because what do you think Solomon did? Solomon seen the mistreatment of people, and he was burdened on it, wasn't he? And he was sorrowful. And if you look into it, man, it'll bring you down. I truly believe, I wish they would do a study. I would say if they did a study, people that watch the news, there's more people depressed that watch the news than there are that don't watch the news. 50 years ago, would we have known of any of this? No. And 50 years ago, and I'm not saying I'm not condoling, whatever you call it. I'm not for what's happened. I think what's happened is wrong. But we wouldn't have known about it. It wouldn't have worried us, would we? We wouldn't have had no conversations about it. Moreover, the profit of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver, nor he that loveth abundance with increase. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they are increased that eat them. And what good is there to the owners thereof, saving the beholding of them with their eyes? The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eat little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not suffer him to sleep. There is a sore evil which I have seen under the sun, namely, riches kept for the owners, therefore to their hurt. But those riches perish by evil travail, and he begetteth a son, and there is nothing in his hand. And this is where I think I see, this is Solomon talking about his life. He says what? He says that there is a sore travail here. He says there, which I have seen in the sun, riches kept for their owners, therefore to their hurt. What's he talking about? Talking about how rich people are greedy. They want to keep their money. I've learned working for my Uncle Jason. Do you know who the hardest people to pay are? I mean, the hardest people to pay him when we work are the people that's got the money. Somebody people that, I don't know how many coal miners, when I worked for him in high school, how many coal miners we would go work for, and as soon as every day we would get done, they'd pay him. But the rich people of Bell County, when we would go work for them, it would be months before they would pay him. It would be like pulling teeth to get money out of them. Why? That's why they're rich. They become so greedy over their money. But what happens is that greed and that being stingy in them begins to do what? It eats at them. And why can't they sleep? Because at nighttime, what are they doing? They're worrying about their money. They can't lay down. But a man that's worked all day, a man that's labored, hey, when he lays down, he can go to sleep. And you'll read on, whether he's had little to eat or much to eat, he'll still sleep. Why? Because he's done what he can do for the day. But the riches, the money, remember, money is not the root of all evil. The love of it is. As he came forth of his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came. And shall take nothing of his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. And this also is a sore evil, that in all points as he came, so shall he go. And what profit hath he that hath labored for the wind? All his days also he eateth in darkness, and he hath much sorrow and wrath with his sickness. I believe Solomon was talking about himself here. I believe he was in a lonesome place. Nobody around him. He had all this money and all the gold and all the silver you could ever want. And guess what? It wasn't enough to satisfy him. And I don't care what you get in life, it's not going to satisfy you. Most people in here that have had a job or worked, I don't care how much money you make. if you hate your job, it's miserable. Isn't it? I love to run heavy equipment. I love it. I love to tire stuff up. I mean, I do. I'm real good at it. I love to tire the ground up. And I could do that for the rest of my life. But that's not what God wanted me to do. But thankfully, I love to teach too. I love the kids. I love teaching. I love coaching. I love that. But if I didn't love it, I couldn't do it. I couldn't. Some people can, and no matter how much money, and that's what he was so miserable because why? He was not satisfied. He could not find no satisfaction. And we're almost finished. Behold, that which I have seen, it is good and comely for one to eat and to drink and to enjoy the good of all his labor that he taketh under sun all the days of his life which God giveth him. For it is his portion. Every man also to whom God hath given riches and wealth, and hath given him power to eat thereof, and to take his portion, and to rejoice in his labor, this is the gift of God. And here's what I want you to see something here. The fact that you have money, the fact that you're able to have a little wealth, the fact that you're able to have a little power, you need to understand this. Nebuchadnezzar didn't, did he? Till after 7 years of being an animal. The money you have, the wealth you have, the power you have, it's not anything you've done, it's what God's gifted you with. God has gifted you with. He has rewarded you for your labor. For he shall not much remember the days of his life, because God does what? Answereth him in the joy of his heart. What's he saying here? He's saying, I've learned that the days of my life aren't about my money, aren't about my horses, aren't about my silver, aren't about my gold. He says, what I've remembered is the joy that God's put in my heart. That's Solomon speaking. He said, I remember the joy. I remember that he placed in me. And the last thing, we always going to read this because I want everybody to remember this. Because if not, you might. Chapter 12, verse 13, it says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man. All right.